talking to each other, which is the whole purpose of one of the main purposes, not the only purpose by any means, of these two-part town hall. My name is Jan Carruthers. I'm a volunteer on the implementation team for the DAC process to support NCPRD and the residents of our district. So today we're just, you know that this is the time of the year when we identify candidates to fill the DAC, which is, I'm so pleased to say, is the third year of something that didn't exist before. So it's very exciting that there's representation for the community to the district, the NCPRD. And the other reason to have these meetings is to encourage participation, a broader outreach and expansion participation in our parks. Because the goals and dreams and ideas that we have will not happen without widespread support. So that is part of what we're doing here. So thanks. And just, I'm going to say it about 6 times. Part 2 is June 7th. Part 2 is June 7th, where people have a chance, will have a chance to further get to know candidates. And in the in-between, if there are people who are interested in becoming part of the DAC representatives, please encourage them to go to NCPRD under the DAC drop down. Okay, I would like to just introduce the current DAC members. We have several of you in the room. So over here, Ryan Stee from
Sub-area 2.
And Dave Gilman.
Sub-area 4.
And Anita Blackmore.
Sub-area 2.
Grover Borneveld.
Sub-area 1.
And Katie Scott.
Sub-area 3.
There you go.
And we have an alumni.
Oh, right. I'm sorry, Deborah Bukowski. Fabulous. Deborah, you're on everything. So I just kind of lose track of what you're on now. So that's terrific.
Sub-area 1 from DAC alumni. The board member.
There are 2 parts to this workshop, and it's really, we're going to abridge it because 1, there's a few of us, and 2, it's, somebody's mentioned, I didn't notice it, but it's kind of toasty. So Ryan's dying over there. So the first part of the agenda was we have a little poll of questions for you. And so I'm going to pass these out. In fact, I'm going to ask Grover to pass these out. If you don't have a pen, we have a lot of pens right here. And I didn't introduce her, but Amanda is here.
Dan, you can do the pens.
Yeah,
Let's keep these together. There you go.
The Aquatic Center for NCPRD, thank you very much. And she's pitch hitting. We actually have an owl microphone because it's a hybrid event. And if anybody were with us on Zoom, which they are not tonight.
We have 1.
Oh, we do?
We got 1.
Who is here? Sean Schroeder. Well, then you can do this, right? Wonderful. Thanks and welcome, Sean Schroeder. And which sub-area? Sub-area 2.
Got any more of those sheets?
Thank you.
She didn't want me to waste one.
So if you would take a moment and just fill these out, and while it's on paper and you could give extra notes, please make the effort to just choose one answer. There's a constant request for feedback from the board of directors, from the DAC, and from the NCPRD staff. I appreciate everybody taking every opportunity to give direct feedback.
Only one answer for each one.
One answer for each one, but if you want to write notes, you can. But the idea is for them to find out what are our priorities. And this is for investments in our future.
That's for the PRD. For the staff.
Well, look at my answers up.
Yeah, no identification.
Yeah.
These are anonymous.
Anonymous. And there's a poll. Was Shane able to answer that? Shane, thanks for answering that poll. So we'll assemble all the information and make sure it gets to all the people, as we will later discussions that we have. So the second part of the beginning of this session, we have two brief presentations. And the first one is from Katie, who will be talking about accomplishments from citizen advocacy and action. Katie Scott.
And I went stand here. Nice. So the purpose of this meeting tonight is kind of to learn about the DAC. We're obviously recruiting new members, but wanted to highlight some of the things that have come out of community engagement. One of those things is like the friends of groups that exist in different sub areas. I wanted to mention a few of those. One is the Friends of the Trolley Trail is one of those friends groups. The Friends of River Villa Park. The Justice Property, which is in my sub area, so my sub area 3 over there. The Elks Club has also adopted the trolley trail near the Park Avenue segment, which is obviously helpful for maintaining facilities. It's another great way for community engagement to happen. Friends of groups can be helpful because that person can potentially attend these meetings, or somebody as a representative can come to them. So they're appreciated by us as DAC members, but not necessarily who we have to be. So I think that is really good to know in terms of if you're getting involved. It's really important that we work to reach out to our community members, and that is going to include encouraging people to participate in the NCPRD surveys and when they do outreach, especially as the system plan is happening. Part of our role in that is to really get our friends and neighbors to share what they think about that and to really be supportive of seeing our parks go in a good direction in the future. So that's what I want to say about community engagement today. It's very important that people's voices are heard. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Katie.
And there's an overview we sometimes call DAC 101, but it's really a kind of an overview to just give you some answers to questions, and current DAC member Anita Blackmar is going to do that for us. Thanks.
Actually, I'd like to piggyback on the accomplishments that have happened, because one that comes to mind is the trolley trail striping. And it was community-led, that people, the friends of the trolley trail, they went along at Christmas time, caroling in the dark and seeing how safe or dangerous it was for somebody to be riding or walking on the trail at night. And clearly it wasn't good. You couldn't see where the edges are. So they came up with the idea of striping the edges with white and made it happen. I think raised some money, sold t-shirts, and advocated very actively. And then it actually got striped, and some award was given to NCPRD that I think should also be shared with, some acknowledgement happened, should be shared with the Friends of the Trolley Trail, because that was a great accomplishment. Another thing that happened in the Justice Park area was that it was going to be sold. That property was going to disappear out of the Parks District, except that advocates in sub-area 3 said, we really want a park there, and spoke up and got together and organized and made a Friends of a Park group and have a Facebook page. So now it's on the capital improvements list rather than on the market, which is a great accomplishment.
This property the same way.
Is that right? Okay. And then just in a different category, the wetlands part in Jennings Lodge had just sort of ended up with a default name, but it didn't really reflect community wishes. So some people from Jennings Lodge area initiated, let's have a real process and follow some real, procedures to name a park that we can apply to future parks when we name them. And so that was a whole process of outreach. And so that's how it got its official name rather than just sort of whatever people used to call it. And it was just sort of by default, a de facto kind of thing. Yes, you have a question?
What is the official?
Boardman Wetlands Nature Park. And let's see, there's some other great things that have happened. Let me see if I can think of off the top of my head. Just scanning around. Well, I've been part of the Friends of Riverville Park, and it's been a way to get plugged into a park at a different level. We've pulled invasive plants, we've planted native plants, we've connected with NCPRD staff to have events there, and the event usually includes some kind of educational aspect, like our local geologist who's in our friends group gave a whole elaborate presentation on the lava flows and all the geology of the park. And then we've done a multiple mulching projects and things to kind of steward that park area. And it's a really great way to get connected to a park. We also got the park on a list for someday getting a nature interpretive sign, which adds to the character of a park if you would, have something that shows what the wildlife is there. And let's see, what else have we done? Anyway, those are some of the highlights of being involved in advocacy projects and being plugged into this scene. And of course, the DAC is a really important part of public engagement. And most of you know all about the DAC or are on the DAC, you know quite a bit. So I don't need to tell you a whole lot about it. The purpose of it is to convey parks and rec priorities from the residents to the board of directors and to keep residents informed about district matters. Let's see. Oh, the beauty of the DAC, which wasn't the case in the past, is that the representation is proportional to the population, and it's balanced in terms of geography with 5 sub-areas. This is where we are right now, sub-area 2, but you can see that they're all similar size and they all have about 22,000 people. And the nice thing about being on the DAC, one of the great things is that representatives are tuned into the area where they live and the lay of the land and the people who live around them, but there's also a commitment to an orientation to the whole district. So because I joined the DAC, I had no clue that certain sub areas, like what's going on out here and some of these other sub areas like sub area 3, I didn't know anything about it, but now I'm learning. I get tuned in and finding out who has parks and what needs are happening in different parts. So there are two DAC members for every sub area, but there's also one more.
With the top slide and another one tiny.
The slide being
I glued them all together.
slide.
Right.
This is a diagram that shows how the DAC, well, how all the parties involved have communication in every direction. There are pathways between staff and then NCPRD, the board of directors, and then out to all the residents. And this two-way communication between residents and the DAC is something we want to build over time. It's a big project, but it's how the DAC is supposed to work. And then community centers get a representative too. And right now we've got the Milwaukee Community Center, but we're going to have another community center here in this very building. So let's see if there's anything else I want to talk about.
No.
I think overall, it's just that there are a lot of ways to get involved in the district. There's a lot of information to learn about the district. We'll talk about some more of that next time, so we don't overload people tonight. But anyway, whatever kinds of activities you tune into or get involved in, whether it's events or going to a park or getting involved as a volunteer or somebody who uses Meals on Wheels, that just the variety is really significant. It's a very multifaceted district. And the more you get involved, the more you get from it. So thank you.
Thank you. I feel a little remiss because I introduced the DAC members, but we didn't introduce everybody else. So if you didn't already introduce yourself, we just go around and do that. And then we're going to do one big non-breakout session. It's just going to be us.
Just want to do the same introduction from the breakouts, which means like where you live and how long.
So if we do that, then we do everybody else. And that's okay. Okay. So I thought, oh, that's pretty close, huh? Sorry. Whoa. So attractive. Okay. Anyway, so why don't we start here? And the way we were going to do introductions during the breakout session is to have you tell a little bit more. So who you are, where you live, how long have you lived there? And then what are your one or two primary park and rec? So we always say parks, but it's park and rec and all the gathering aspects of those things. So let's start over here with Mark Elliott. And then when we're done with those introductions, then I'm going to turn it over to Eleanor Hunter, and she's going to facilitate a conversation about generating ideas here. We're in this process. We're going to continue this process. And so your ideas are terrific. So,
and hang on one second before we start. Who is willing to take notes on what people's favorite park and rec thing is? Because we need Jane will be taking notes because we want to capture whatever information we can whenever there's a gathering.
Bring your notes stuff.
And the Zoom person.
Right, and we want to invite our, actually, is your mic on, Shane? No, but is he, Shane, you may be muted. Sean, sorry. Sean, now that I've done that, how about putting you on the spot? You're on a mic, and so why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll go around the rest of the room, okay?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, my name is Sean Schroeder. I live in the sub area 2. We're right off of River Road. And let's see, we've lived there for about 2 years. And then I'm on Zoom and not on camera. I'm on my way home from work right now. So what was the last part that you asked for intros?
So that's one or two of your primary park and or rec interests.
Well, I have 3 kids, 12, 11, and 9. So we have a lot of park interests. We're also pretty heavily involved in that part of the Oak Grove community. We go to Good Roots Community Church and participate in the food bank there, and have quite a few folks that we serve in that area. Yeah, we just like being a part of the community and want to help out.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and have a safe trip home.
Thank you.
Mark.
All right, so my name is Mark Elliott, and I live off of Concord Road, just Southview, I guess, right around Southview and Concord Road. My husband and I have lived here since November 2017. And my interest in the Parks and Rec Department is one of the big ones is to kind of get this park built and get the community center up and running and functioning. That's really a big one for me. And for all the recreation programs that will happen in this building and already are. I'm on the advisory board for the Milwaukee Community Center, and so that has it's very close, and I have an interest in making sure that the two of them complement each other and don't compete with each other, right? Because of resources and a lot of other reasons. So that's my primary one. We take our dogs to Grizzly Park all the time. So that's one of the things that we do. And I wanted to write down on there, beyond community centers, it's like space to take my dog for a walk.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
My name is Thelma Hagen Miller, and I'm quite well known in the community. I've lived here in the same house for 58 years. It's on the corner of Southview and Westview, just on Concord. So my kids went to school here, both of them. They also went to Riverside. So I've been in this building lots and lots of times, which is why when this building was vacated, a group of us went to the school board and lobbied them not to sell the building outright to somebody else, to keep it in public hands. That's how come we're here today. So I've done that. Most people that know me know that I'm the person that started with the Friends of the Trolley Trail. And that's been a long journey, many different things, and lots of community involvement in the Friends of the Trolley Trail. I mean, there were 7 of us that started out, lobbied Metro to purchase the right of way, and so on, and here we are.
Thank you, Thelma, for all of it. Colleen.
Colleen Rockwell. I've lived in Milwaukee since the early 70s, right off of Lake Road. My father still lives in a family home. I live a mile down. My nearest park that I utilize is North Clackamas Park. We walk from my home. There's a neighbor access through there that it is allowed and encouraged to go down into the park. I enjoy walking around the park, and we do have interpretive signs there about wildlife and so forth. My interests in the park are removing invasives and natives. And also I'm interested in the sports facilities such as the pickleball. But I realize that those are my interests and not interests of everyone. And I'd like to know what those are and learn about them.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your interest. Now we'll go back to Brian, since we're here. Go ahead and do the rest of the introduction.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah. Oh, because all we asked you, we just said DAC member.
Okay, yeah. So I'm a DAC member. My name is Ryan C. I live in sub area 2 off of Laurel Street. My main park interest, I love trails. I love to go to the wilderness. Unfortunately, we can't go to the wilderness here in the city. But I love to go to Grizzly Park. I kind of go to all the parks along the Trolley Trail, and take my dog with me. And I joined the DAC because I am a park and rec. I have a park and recreation professional background for 22 years, and I just like bringing that perspective and hopefully help us build a better district and get some new stuff. I fixed the old stuff.
Indeed. Thank you.
I'm Jane Morrison. I live in sub area 1.
Jennings Lodge area. My first experience with parks here was I was working in the tourism industry, and there was this woman from Slow Sure who said, I'm working on this trolley trail thing, trying to get metro, blah, blah, blah. And I have the greatest fear of poison oak, thanks to that one. It was 2 stories high on Neff Road where the crossing is. And that is my biggest memory of parks in Clackamas County. I use the Aquatic Center a couple of times a week for therapeutic reasons. You know, it's like my son and savior. And I love to get rid of invasives. I love natives. I'm working on that in my own yard. Love to have more trails and things like that. But right now, the big push is the old Jennings/school.
Given the county, I used to be on the DAC, and I got on originally because I took a tour of I'm putting these in place, parks in my area, and realized that they really have been neglected. Some of them were, one of them is maybe still a vacant lot. It's not really a park. That we really needed to do something to improve the situation in our area. And I'm a big fan of nature parks and being able to take the dog to a natural area. So that's how I got involved.
Thanks, Deborah.
And I lived off, I'm in area one, I've lived off of Jennings Road for over 30 years now.
My name is Eleanor Hunter, and I have lived in the district since 1998. So I'm going to have 24 years, something like that, depending on that. I would say my favorite particular part would be Riverville, and the idea that it's down and separate, and there's less humanity. There's less, you know, visuals of humanity. But I have to say, I would love to have the bridge to Lake Oswego. So those aren't opposite desires. To enjoy Riverville Park and have the overall bridge myself. And I still love it. I'll take it over the rivers. Both hands. Both hands.
I'm Dave Gilman. I'm in the sub area for up on Mount Scott near Island Road. I've been there since 1989. And most important thing seems to be to make sure that the Parks Department is successful and it's moving forward. I like the direction it's going now. I think Mike as a director doing a really good job. See that going forward. Same time I have a dog and I like to walk him too, and I like to make sure that our nearest place to go is the school, Mount Scott School. I like to make sure that the Parks Department and the schools keep together and make sure the schools areas are available for use too.
I'm Katie Scott. I live in sub-area 3, which is where Mount Talbert is. It's pretty close to Mount Talbert, which is obviously a metro, not in NCPRD property. But I probably go to Pfeiffer Park a lot. My daughter calls it the Monkey Bar Park because it has the best monkey bars in town, she says. I personally like North Clackamas Park a lot because it's got shade. So these days, I think that's the park I would most like to be at. We spend a lot of time roller skating and going to skate parks, which don't actually exist in all of NCPRD, as Mike has recently pointed out. So I am really curious if that is an interest that other residents in NCPRD have, is should there be a skate park for some of our outlying areas? My hope for the time I am a DAC rep in my term is to see justice property happening and budgeted and going forward. So
I'm Anita. I'm on the DAC. And I guess first I got involved in Rivervilla Park, which is a fairly short walk from my house, and got connected to a whole bunch of people who frequent the park. And as Eleanor pointed out, there's a sort of secluded feel to it because there's no busy roads and you don't see a whole lot of buildings. It's mostly sky, greenery, and water. And it's sort of, you're tucked away, you can get this feeling of belonging. It's just a really special place because it's not, I guess partly because it's not like just roads going by with traffic, that sort of thing. And having a river right there, I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right? So we formed the Friends of Rivervilla Park, and then we heard about the DAC forming, and it seemed like, and we'd already made a little connection with the nature specialist at NCPRD, and it seemed like, well, we should have a representative from our sub area, partly to represent Riverville Park, but you know, the bigger picture also. So I said, well, I will see if I can get on the DAC, and that worked out fine. So that's how I got here. And that's how I learned about a whole lot of variety of things that in the district. I mean, there's everything except for the skate park. There are skate parks. But there could be, yeah, there's a lot going on in the district, a lot of different services, a lot of different programs, and different kinds of parks and trails. But there could be a lot.
And I'm Grover, and I'm on sub-area 1. And in this very room, in May of 2019, the board of directors for NCPRD were meeting, and myself and several other community members made the request to shift to being more proportional because the unincorporated is 80% of the district, and we have the same number of parks as the 20%. So we need to look at how to make that work, and we live in areas that could certainly use it, and it's been the intent of Parks District for 30 years. So that's what I'm here for, is I really want to support having more neighborhood parks. The idea is that you don't have to get in your car and drive to a park, you could walk to a park. And I also met Thelma years ago because I live one door away from the trolley trail, and I heard about it. And so I signed a bunch of my neighbors up, and we cleared out 3 truckloads of stuff from Rothy to McLaughlin, and NCPRD came and picked it all up where we had to stack. So anyway, I'm very interested in having people be engaged in their own community and speaking about what they care about. And by the way, the only speed bumps in unincorporated Clackamas County are in front of my house. And it took us years to do it, but we had speeders going through there and dogs getting hit and killed and all that stuff. So we have a traffic calming plan. So it is whatever it takes to get people involved. I love doing that. So people take ownership in speaking up for what they want.
And I'll finish the introductions by saying I've lived in Jennings Lodge for 32 years with him. And I'm involved initially because he said, guess what we need to do? But the truth is that I think so many aspects of our good quality of life have everything to do with places to gather, places to be creative, places to play if you're an adult or a child. And our neighborhood, there's no place you can have a meeting. At this time, this building was defunct, out of commission. There was no place to do a show. There was no place to do an infinite number of things. You couldn't cook up, except for the library. And then guess what we're doing? You know, we're working up to our earballs in new libraries. So I believe in community action. And so I love all the parks. I kind of like the parks where there are ducks. You know, that's I think, but so thank you very much for being here. I'm turning it over to Eleanor for new and better ideas.
I'll get up here so Sean's around.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple of basic questions that we could go around and ask. And Jane, thank you for continuing to take notes and everything. So the first question is, what are the offerings or locations of NCPRD that you most appreciate? I'm thinking we kind of covered that, so feeling like we're there. So the next question is what do you feel is most missing or needed, either in your sub area or for the whole Parks District? So let's go the other way around just to shake things up. So what do you think in your sub area or the entire Parks District are most missing or needed?
Right. It's a kind of a twofer. Living where we live, having the trolley trail is a great connector. Having connectors that connect parks, libraries, etc., without being on McLaughlin. And the other is to make that work, that we need more neighborhood parks to make that chain of pearls or whatever.
Great. I would definitely say more neighborhood parks. A while ago, I read the standards that the Trust for Public Land had come up with, and they assess cities all over the country to see how well they have, you know, how many of them have a park within walking distance for people. And that's the standard, is if you can walk to a park, then you've got enough parks, and we are not even close to that.
I also agree that having walkable parks is really important, but I think we should have a skate park in our district. So I'm still gonna say that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Dave?
Yeah, like I say, there's a lot of different things depending on your perspective as to what's needed. Neighborhood parks are good if you don't have them. If you do have them, then what do you need? But, I think the connector, the idea of the connector is probably good. Realizing it's difficult because there's not always land available.
Yeah, right.
Place where you want to have parks.
Oh, yeah.
So something to work on. I think the study is going to be coming up for the plan will sort of help guide where we're going to go with that.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, neighborhood parks, nature parks, and nature parks. But also, which is hopefully going to happen, is that this building and the park area adjacent to it will act more as a community center, because we don't really have a community center. We don't have, as Jan was saying, a place where people can congregate, where different events can happen. We really need that.
One of the things that I look at other parks districts and I say, what do they have that we don't have, other than we clearly don't have enough parks? No question about that. But other parks districts in the metro area also have classes and other ways to educate people. And a great way to bring people together is do a class on getting rid of invasive species and pollinator gardens. And, you know, that's what hiking trail etiquette, you know, get together with groups that are cleaning up litter on nature trails. I mean, there's other things that bring people together that have life interests and build community that way. And I know there's lots of classes out there, and you can YouTube, you know, anything you want. But I still think that what's missing here is those kinds of things that are available in other places that draw people together with like and really support the walkables and the connectors.
Make sure you take notes on yourself.
Yes.
So far listening to what others have said, I'm wondering, why do we have less parks than everyone else? And for me, what I would like to see personally is the nature walks with some length. You know, doing a loop around, you know, 10 times. I'd like to see some length. And so you talked about connectors to community parks, and that would probably do it, but that's what I'd like to see.
So I agree with actually everything everybody's saying. I'm going to take it to a little bit higher level. The number one thing is land for parks. And then the next piece is to build that community interconnected pedestrian green space streets, something that is comfortable than walking on the McLaughlin. Like the trolley trail is a great example, and you can accomplish that with streets and helping the county figure out how to do that and implement it.
Thank you. Well, I have two things.
One is that the parks that we have, when Risley Park was being redone by the Parks District, one of the things that they were going to do was put in a big ball field down there and take some trees down. And the neighbors and some other people that I know said, no, that's not exactly what we want. That's only what the Parks District wanted. And what we asked for and got was a perimeter trail, because there was no trail around the park, even though the park's small. They put a perimeter trail around it and marked it so that you can go out and walk the trail or run the trail and you know how far you've gone around that trail. So I think that no matter what the park, it should have that kind of a convenience as part of it. The other one is this building itself. You all talk about it, I've heard you say it even tonight, a community center. I think of this building as a cultural center. Grover's heard me talk about this. The things that you talked about where you could have classes and meetings just like this and things going on that are not necessarily recreation oriented. They're culture oriented. So we've got the stage in the gymnasium. And there's a reason for that. And there's lots of rooms down here where you can have individual types of cultural classes going on.
What? Yeah, I would also agree about the neighborhood parks. It's always high priority. I also think in terms of the size of this district that we are large enough to have regional amenities. So like North Caucus Park, I think of that as more of a regional amenity, as well as the Milwaukee Center and the community center that is here will be more of a regional, I think, where everyone can use it, not specific to one sub area. So I think that's one area that I would love to see equal emphasis.
I think that we need Parks Foundation. I think that it's like Ryan said, the issue about land is not something you get now and build a park. Land is asset acquisition is years out, and some of us, are still a little sad, really sad about Jennings Lodge Estates. That it could, a wise real estate plan is really important. I think would be really important for a future, so that you could have as many little parks and big parks, and that our area can sustain. But I think that's missing because everybody's busy trying to do the day-to-day and the now. It's not a fault. It's just it's not yet here.
Sean, are you there, Sean? Have you finished driving home?
I am here.
Okay, great.
Well, I think the things that are important in my mind with the parks are much of what everybody is saying already. I love the idea and the thought of improving neighborhood parks and adding more. I know that the closest one to our home is Risley Park, and my kids have to cross River Road to get there. Now that's a little challenging because there's not much on my side of river where you could do anything with that, but I do think just some trails, walk trails, bike trails, some paths like that would be a good improvement. And then like if you have already said with the building that you guys are in right now, I mean, I grew up just up the street and went to Concord School and was in the building, and I love the idea of getting it, opening it up to the community and having something where it just keeps serving the purpose that it was set there for. Building on that.
Nice, thank you. Nice.
Well, I would say three things. One, a cultural center, community center, in that way of third space that many people have mentioned, that idea of where is there some place to gather. I would love there to be more access to the river. There's just Riverville Park, and to me, it's a public asset that has been privatized, and that there should be more access to the river. And I love the idea of greater connectivity between the land assets that are here, say the field next to New Urban High School that is not used and can't be used by the public during the day, and how that could be jointly somehow utilized between the Parks District and the school district. How is it that we can come together and best use the resources that we do have? Where are the pieces of land that can be identified to purchase, or to ask people who own that land to, you know, donate it or tax, whatever that could happen. So those sort of pieces there. So I think that's everything on that question. Why don't we start with Deborah on the next one to comment on, do you feel that NCPRD is providing you with the full value of your parks tax dollars?
Oh, that's a trick question. Because our levy is very low.
54 cents a thousand.
It's lower than just about anywhere.
Yep.
So
in the state.
So we, you know, as taxpayers are putting in, let's say, a suboptimal amount, and therefore, it's not therefore, but we are getting less because we aren't paying enough, I think, to really get a first-rate parks department.
Jane?
Could you say the question again?
Sure. Do you feel that that NCPRD is providing you with the full value of your parks tax dollar?
Well, up until hearing this, I probably would have said unequivocally no. But that's new information for me. I never bothered to look at other, it's the dollar voucher. And I feel like I'm kind of paying attention. And I'm guessing that 99% of the people in our district are also not aware of that we're kind of getting what we are paying for. You know, and we look at other parts of the metro area and say, why do they have such great parks? And it's sort of like, oh, that's interesting. So it completely changed. I would have said, you know, hell no, we're not. Now I want to rethink that.
So I guess I'm in the same boat as Jean a little bit there, and I would hope that that we have such a lower budget is not because the residents don't want more. It's either we're not educated or informed, and hope that we want to be. So I guess that's all I really can say at this point.
So, ready for this?
Oh, right.
Okay, so this, and I'm going to use very specific words that I want to make sure are caught. I think the district. Are you ready for this, Jay? I think the district staff do an amazing job at what they have.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that Parks and Rec, I know, and there's studies that Parks and Recreation add significantly to the value of the community and add to the health of the community. And in that note, I don't think we're getting the value for what we should be paying. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So I think we're doing the best with what little we have. You get what you pay for.
Thelma?
Yeah, I would tend to agree with Brian, but I also, in being out in the community and talking to people, don't think it's on the top of their priority list. So changing the rate that we currently have, which we get great value for the rate we currently have from the district and the staff and the assets that we have. I don't think that we're going to be able to convince the rest of the people out there that we need to change that. Mark?
Well, I think the way I looked at it myself is that a majority of the space that makes up the district is built out, right? We are an old community by standards of US standards, 100 plus years, right? So we don't have areas that are being built out like Happy Valley that have massive amounts of system development charges that are coming in for new developments and new parks and that they do, not only for the parks, but for libraries, whatever else, they have that, that's a positive for them. In our case, we have less than, I think the statistic is something like less than 5% of the land mass here is uninhabited. Mm-hmm. And so the intention that we're going to be able to use system development charges to do more improvements and capital improvements is probably not likely to be very fruitful because we just don't have that kind of things happening here as far as things being built or whatever. And so it does fall on taxpayers to make up the difference, right? And that's the quandrum I see us in. And so to some degree, the taxpayer is being asked to do an awful lot. And they're also being asked to pay for the fire department and for the libraries. But a lot of amenities that we all want to have in our communities. And so I think what I see as lacking is a disconnect between value and vision. So how do you sell the value of it when it's hard to see the vision of what the Parks Department wants to be? Does that make sense? Yes. I think there's and I think what I'm happy to see that the systems plan, or I'll call it a master plan, or I don't call it a master plan, but I call it a master plan, is a way to get that input from the community to put together a corporate vision, of what the Parks Department we'd like it to be, so that we have a concrete idea of, well, what does it take to get there, and what does that mean to me personally on my tax bill? And so then I have more information than I do right now about how to get what it means to me personally.
I know enough about influence to know that things happen when one intensifies the gap. So I would echo what you're already saying. It's not that we don't have value, but we are complacent that this is what we get on a wider scale. This is what we get, this is what we pay for, and this is what we get. Only if we do this kind of conversation that says, oh, but here's what's possible. To get there, it will take this. And you have that conversation enough times, and then you get philanthropy involved, and then you get all kinds of energy that right now isn't even visible. So nobody is going to vote for a new tax thing if they don't see that it's worth it. So but I guess what I say is, yeah, we get a lot for 54 cents a thousand.
Sean, what are your sense about?
Oh, he is left.
Yeah. Okay, he's left the room, right? Eldest is left the room.
Down to his 3 children.
Yeah, that's fine. I agree with what people have been saying. I was the citizen advocate for the Yes for Parks measure a couple years ago. The idea of trying to separate the Parks District from county governance and have a separate district at a different tax level. So I agree that I think for what we pay, we get an amazing round of services. I think one of the things that happens with Happy Valley is there was undeveloped land that could be set aside for libraries and parks as a plan. This area was not planned because it was farmland and different things. And who needed a park then? Why would you set it aside? It's unincorporated space. So nobody had a vision or a plan of anything. So we sort of grown up around it. And that idea of how do you retrofit an urban area to have parks when there's the lowest tax rate of any urban area in the state. So pick a challenge, any challenge. Grover.
Thanks. I'm glad I get to follow both what you just said and what Mark just said. So I very much agree that to consider spending more, there needs to be, as was said, some sense that it will have a return, and that we can talk about that. I listened today to the briefing from the consultants who are exploring and did outreach as to having this district go to be a locally governed district. And they talked about Tualatin Hills as a perfect example, which already had a pretty hefty, I think they're what $100.94 per thousand or something that, I don't know, some big number. Yeah, anyway, it's
3 times.
Yes. However, they were able to, by showing, if they did it quite strategically, they put out questions about, well, if you could have what you wanted, what would you want? So they paid great attention to that. And then they came up with a plan and they said, okay, for 25 million and it'll cost this much more, here's what we can do for that. And they got the 25 million. So it is a matter of having people have some belief that they will get something. I've lived here for 32 years and we haven't got anything in 32 years. We got something that the water department put together to save urban wetlands because it had a lot of problems that they paid for it. And then they gave it to the parks. And I'm happy it is there as a wetlands, but that's not a park where you can go play Frisbee or have a picnic at that like. So it is, how do we restore that sense that we can have something? And the last thing I want to say is that because of the money we have and the current structure that's been in place for the last 2 decades, the money is not evenly distributed. We put in 80% and have half the parks. And then there's a group that puts in 20% and have half the parks. And the tax dollars pays for the administration and the maintenance. So it's, and it's locked in through this zone process, which we have been trying to. So it is a matter of how do we restructure that, and going to a new district, if we can look at how to make that work. And by the way, that's going on. I'm also on the Library District Advisory Committee, and we had an incredible meeting on Monday night to look at just about doing that, because it's just not even distribution across all the libraries. And the only way really to do it is to figure out all what's needed and then come up with a solution that will address those, and then be able to raise taxes to get things that people wanted, as opposed to just raise taxes because we need more.
Just anecdotally, being in some area too, it seems over and over again, a big property goes on the market that was a big estate, and then it's going to be broken up and made into a lot of lots with a lot of new houses. And so there are these opportunities for SDCs, and there are opportunities for setting aside parts of those properties or the whole property. And they come and go, and they come and go, and they come and go, and it always is sad. And then people at our CPO say, well, this is how many acres it is, and this is how many trees are going to go, and then it's going. So it just happens over and over again. And I don't know the solution to it. I just know the sorrow of it.
I think people have said a lot of great things. I don't think I really add anything. I know, finances and tax revenue is just a really complex subject. I think it's loaded, so I'm going to pass on that one.
Dave?
Okay, well, I've got to try to pick my words carefully here. Because some of the people seem to be talking about, the lack of parks in this area or that area, something like that. But it's not something that happened right away. It's not the fault of people living here. It's the fault of people who moved in here originally, you did not set aside any land for parks. And you can't blame Milwaukee for having too many parks, because they're a city and they set aside the land for parks. And so did the city of Portland. I grew up in Portland. There were parks, lots of parks, Mount Tabor Park, Laurel Bush Park. You know, they were a mile away or so, but they were there. You could go play. And they had different things you could do. So it's just you just have to look. And people are talking about their area here, like most people are from this area, and they don't seem to understand at all what it is like in the other parts of the area, like on the other side of 205 or on the other side of Milwaukee, where there's a lot of things that have been built in that area and still land built between 205 and 82nd, for instance, where we'll have SDCs. I know I'm not anxious to throw all those SDCs into the fountain pot so they can build Concord School, Concord Community Center, whatever. So it's just people. That's why I'm interested in this study. It's going to happen. What are they going to find out? I'm sure they're going to find out something different than what people think.
Yes. So how about one last question, because it ties into what we're talking about now. This is, how do you feel about the possibility of NCPRD becoming a local control district with sub-area residents serving as the board of directors, rather than the current county commissioners, who four-fifths of which don't live within the boundaries? And one of the commissioners happens to live in the area, but there's no requirement. So that's what we currently have. But the idea of having NCPRD become a local control district with sub-area residents as the board, as opposed to the current structure where it's the county commissioners of the entire county. So why don't we start with Thelma, and then we'll go that way, just to shake it up a little bit.
Thelma would say the devil's in the details.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
If you could separate the things out, I would say yes, go for 266. If you end up with putting more than one thing on a ballot measure, which they did in 2014, I'd say no, the citizens aren't going to buy it again, just like they didn't buy it in 2014. You can't change the district, raise the rates, and get an all new board at the same time in the same ballot measure. And why they ever even thought they could in 2014 is beyond me. So then that's why I say the devil's in the details. If in fact they come out with just one thing, change from the 457 or 451 to 266, and that's all you have to think about when you vote, then I'd say yes, because you're not talking money.
Right. Or
people. You're not talking money or people.
Agreed. Right.
I agree. I think there's a lot to be said for becoming an autonomous special district that is focusing on one major area. Parks and Recreation is actually one of it shouldn't be a secondary service, it should be a basic service.
Correct.
So I think becoming a special district, I'm all for it. That has local governance to implement that vision that we're going to be going through. I think it's so important. I think it's actually one of the most important things right now, because we can be a board on its own that is focusing on Parks and Recreation, is just focusing on Parks and Recreation. They're more nimble. We can figure budgeting out. There's a lot of benefits to it. And right now, we're competing against 40 other topics. So it is one of the most important things we can do besides this.
Thank you. Connie?
So what I would say is that I know this is a hot topic, and I would say that not having as much information as I would want to make to say one way or the other. I would say that I'm probably a more local representative of the residents out there than most of you that are more educated and informed about this topic. So the lack of knowledge and what would happen scares me. And you definitely know more than I do, but the fact that I don't know that scares me. And so I feel I'm just more the little resident out there.
Useful.
So,
Useful to know.
Represent most of the voters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's
well, I need to understand it more in a way that I can understand what, if we do this, this is what will happen, and be confident that that's what will happen.
And there's 80,000 of you.
Well, inform me.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
That's
why I said the devil's in the details.
Yeah. So teach me.
I've lived on Jennings Avenue since 1987. And I don't know if I'm completely corrupted in my view from Jennings Lodge Estates, because that brought 72 households on Jennings Avenue where there used to be the campground. And but I think I'm noticing in other parts of our neighborhood that where it used to be the family moved in 1940 and the kids went to Jennings Lodge School, and then, you know, the parents died, the kids inherited the house, and, you know, whatever, it was like the same people. And almost everybody I can name in Jennings Lodge Estates moved here because their kids moved to the Portland area in the last 20 years. Every single one. So they're not from here. And half of them think that they just need to call the city, you know, find out about the roads or the sewers or the water or whatever it is. Like, not in a city. You know, it's that running.
You don't live in Milwaukee.
Yeah, we don't live in Milwaukee. Don't listen to what the post office tells you to do. You know, say you live in St. Louis with the right zip code, and you'll get your mail. So I think there's a huge bunch of people who aren't as dialed in as 90% of the people in this room. But I also think there's a lot of new people. And you know, just in the years I was on the CEO, what I was seeing is people that were moving here, and they were either downsizing from someplace else, or they were deciding either had munchkins or were deciding to have munchkins, and so they wanted to move someplace where they could have the backyard. You know, have a house, they could afford a house. So I think there's I think people who've been here for a long time that don't know. But I also think there are people that are new here that really don't know. And that's huge educational. Yeah. To get, you know, and to continue as we are, or to get something different.
It's interesting if you look at any of the stuff that the Parks District puts out. Concord School is in Milwaukee.
Burns my biscuits every time. Deborah, you only got about 10 minutes left, 5 minutes left.
Well, let's see, I like strengthening local control over these issues. And I mean, Grover and I suffered through many years of the reorganization of the DAC. And the reason primarily they were not being represented. The DAC was on hiatus for I don't know how long.
2 to 3 years.
And then we spent years just doing nothing but reorganize. But the reason for all that was that if you don't have representation, you don't have a voice, and you wind up with 20% of the parks where you're paying 80% of the taxes. So I mean, not knowing what exactly that proposition would be, I think that would be a good thing for us to get more local control over policy. and if there's a board, not just an advisory committee, where they have control over policy, which is a whole different
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I'd say, yeah, I agree with that would be a good way to go. Local control can be very, very good. On the other hand, it can also be very bad sometimes because it gets dysfunctional and doesn't work. That, you know, that's the danger. You know, how, like I say, the devil is in the details. How do you set it up? How is it going to work? Who's going to be elected? You're going to start thinking about all those things. You can't just do that overnight. And once you get it voted for, it take a year to do that. You know, one example is the city of Portland, where they're going to elect for a new form of government. And so how is that going to work out? I'm afraid it's not. But that's my concern too, is what happens if it doesn't work out.
I think it needs to happen, and I think it needs to be the future, and that it will help the district in the long run.
Yeah.
And that might just be me. I did mention earlier, I've lived in the district for like 6 years now, so I'm probably the newest president on the DAC by a long shot. But a lot of my neighbors in sub-area 3 are commuters who commute into Portland for work. So a lot of suburban families who might be at work during the day and use those off hours, you know, to go to the parks with their families, and having things really close is really important. I think understanding that giving the residents the control is what would happen with that change, because if you're talking county commissioners 4 or 5 not living in the area, they don't have the vested interest that people who live in the area do. So I do think it will be better in the long run, but it's a big hill to climb. So no.
Just the thing, the county does have a lot of different things they handle it.
Oh, yeah.
Like water, well, I'm not sure what water and sewer and different.
Okay.
Special district.
Special district.
We have 2 minutes left.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay, because it's a rabbit hole we can all go down.
Yeah.
No question about it. So
What I like about the DAC, the current one, is that it represents each sub area with equal representation. And I'd like the board of the new, you know, the local control board to also be, it has a member from each sub area or 2 members from each sub area, rather than a sort of free for all, like you could live anywhere in the district. So that would be really important to me.
Time, I'll say what you said.
did I answer this question?
I don't think
So you started.
Oh, you started. No, I didn't. I absolutely believe that there should be local residents having say over local resources for the area, and the whole issue of taxes is again the devil's in the details, and how that balances out, and how do you feel like you're getting what you pay for, and where there are areas it's really dicey of where are more affluent areas and where are more lower income areas, and how is there equity built into that as well. And not just, gee, this area pays this tax, but that area pays. I mean, so equity is a very complicated, multivalent, nuanced thing for a really clear value. So there's a lot to get to that. So
I had heard a comment about that this process, if it was going to go forward, it was going to go forward very soon, aiming for December of this year. If that were the case, I would say, no, don't do that. Because I believe it is a massive undertaking, the preparation, the marketing, the education, the quality, and I think Katie's right, it's years, but it will be hugely beneficial. But for once to do it with the kind of investment in it, in order to make it occur. So yeah, I'm a big favor, but
not.
Yeah, so it's not about saying, what park do you like? It's going to be a matter of think about what's possible. And the systems plan will make a huge difference in that once that's going forward. But it's also true that local people will want to have more of an input into it. So I'm in favor of it.
I have 30 seconds. So I guess I'm in favor of it. And what I would add is that I think local governance builds trust between citizens and the elected officials. And it also builds in accountability. And I think those things are two things that are lacking in how the district is managed right now.
The trust and accountability.
On the public official side of it, I'm not saying staff.
Right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I think everybody is aware that the next meeting is on June 7th. The idea is to bring as many people as possible to that meeting when voting will actually happen, so that there is as much representation in election as possible. It's the district advisory committee, committee, right? So again, I wanted advisory to have more spine in it, but that's just me. So
Eleanor, thank you very much for doing this so nicely, so well.
Yes, I do. So I want to also really say again, reiterate that word.
Reiterate.
Thank you. That to have conversations with more people, because I appreciate all the questions that it will allow us to build more. The structure that we currently have is we're an advisory board to a board of directors. We work with the staff because they do the work and they do great work. I truly have appreciated what we've seen over the last couple of years. However, we have no direct influence over them. And so our opportunity is to speak to the board of directors. And they'll be meeting in this room on the 21st of June. My hope is that we could gather some ideas to plant some seeds, whether it be about being a direct district, because they talked about it today, you ought to listen to what they had to say. And also to look at where to put the focus. And I can't get more excited about the idea that the master system plan is going to, in fact, gather all the data that we need so we can keep moving forward. But if we don't have people engaged, it's kind of like, who knew? So that's, please, you know, what we were talking earlier, go put up something. No, talk to people that you know that care about parks or would care about parks, like bless his heart, Sean, with his 3 kids, or skate parks or whatever. So that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you very much. And I want to acknowledge that we have 3 candidates. We are certainly interested in as many candidates looking at this possibility now or in the future, because next year we'll have more openings, and the year after that we'll have more openings. This will grow. So thank you very much, particularly on this nice hot day.
So you said 3 candidates. Is that for both subgroups?
We have 2 for 1 and 1 for 1.
Okay.
So far. This is just
right. And it'll be the application is open until Monday before our next meeting.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to say is that even if one isn't elected, it's an opportunity to stay connected, because it is the building the group. I mean, there are 40 people who are working on the justice property. We probably have 25 or 30 people, 20 anyway, not working on the Jennings Lodge possibility, and then there's et cetera, et cetera. So having people take turns being at the table, but the table is a place to be representing the local folks.
And this will grow based on the power of the volunteers to support staff, to connect to the board, and to make your brilliant ideas known. Thank you very much.
I would say it's also based on the ability for residents to actually do something.
Yes.
Rather than stick red dots on pictures.
Right.
Yet another time,
right.
Because it's advisory and it goes to work. So there is the accountability part that there needs.
Right. But there's also projects.
Yes.
There's a committee of somebody who says, okay, but the to-do might not be as fun because we're in the formation stage, but it's still to-dos. Still to-dos.
Thank Amanda for.
Thank you.
Yes, Amanda, terrific. Thank you, Ryan.
One last thing, the district advisory committee. I got it right. It's also about advocacy.
It is.
It's advocating for our district, our fine workers of our district. It's advocating for moving forward. It's advocating for having positive interactions with people. So
Right.
it's a great thing to be on, and if somebody doesn't get on it, that's okay. Let's stay connected and let's continue our advocacy.
Right. Thank you very much. Nicely said. And remember that the Board of District Board of
Yes.
our Board of Directors continues to ask for feedback. They are genuine, they're committed, they've got lots of things to do, and you have to knock on their foreheads to get their attention. However, they seem genuine in hearing.
They want to know where are the people. You say the people, so you need to have people come to their meeting.
So the 21st, put it on your calendar, invite your friends. Thank you very much.
Not 7 for that meeting. The
6
one,
o'clock here.
our meeting here on the 7th is at 7, but the Board of Directors meeting is 6 o'clock here.
And we were planning, if we had lots of breakout rooms, to say, okay, how many of you plan to be here? Raise your hands for the 7th. How many plan to be here? And no, you're not voting.
Oh,
You
it's
just,
not just
do you
for
plan
voting.
to be here at on the
Yeah.
7th?
The meeting isn't about voting. That is one
Yeah.
function that takes place.
Yeah.
And every year, 2 sub areas will have that be going on, but the other 2 can be working on projects and
Right.
outreach.
And the other thing I was going to ask is, and who would ask some people to join you? Fabulous.
Invite
Nicely
people.
done.
Oh, yeah.
Invite you.
Oh, yeah.
Invite people. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's let this woman go home.
You mean for the service, you know, hold the prayers or anything?